Hey there, all you lovely people. Welcome back. Let's continue on now, talking about now arguments. So the last video I just ended with saying, well, what is an argument? Well, an argument is a collection of statements, and these statements are connected together in a certain way. And maybe a good idea to think about this before like really going into the real details of what that means is to have a nice little example here. And I like to use examples from the law because I think lawyers know how to argue. They use this all the time, but I hope you'll see by the end of all this discussion, we use arguments all the time. This is nothing unusual. It's just lawyers study this very closely. So my examples here will be kind of legally based because I think if you've watched like Law and Order or something, you know, you have a sense about what's going on in arguments. So let's consider this following sentence here. The defendant must go to jail because he is guilty of stealing the jewels. Now, why is this an argument? Because this is an argument is being made here. And well, if you think about it, I said that an argument is a collection of statements. So we might just first figure out, well, what are the statements involved here? And in fact, there are two statements. Remember, a statement is a claim. It's either true or false. And so the claim is being made that it's true that the defendant must go to jail. So there's a statement. And then we have another statement that the defendant is guilty of stealing the jewels. And that's also being said to be true in this case. So that's also a statement. So we have these two statements. The defendant must go to jail is being asserted, and the defendant is guilty of stealing the jewels is being asserted. Now, I said an argument connects these two statements in this case, these statements in a certain way. And so, well, how are these statements being connected? I mean, the clue here is this magical word because the because is starting to establish now a relationship between these. And the idea is that we're told one thing, defendant must go to jail, and then notice, this is an argument, because we're given a reason for believing why the defendant must go to jail. And what's the reason that we're given for why the defendant must go to jail? Oh, the defendant is guilty of stealing the jewels. And that, my friends, we're friends now? You're my best friend now. Is the nature of an argument, is that we have multiple statements, in this case, two statements, where one statement is being used, in this case, this statement, guilty of stealing the jewels, this is being used as evidence or as a reason for accepting another statement, which is the defendant must go to jail. And that's, in short, why this is an argument. And so this is kind of just summarizing what I just said here. Here we have two statements. The defendant must go to jail, as we've seen, and the statement the defendant is guilty of stealing the jewels. And the word because in there indicates that the second statement, again, the guilty of stealing the jewels there, is providing reason or some evidence for us to believe that this first statement about the defendant going to jail, that must be true as well. And that's how arguments work. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I don't want to get there just yet. But we do this all the time. Yeah, lawyers, of course, do this because they're arguing for stuff. You know, they're giving reasons and evidence for various things, and the other lawyers trying to, give their own reason and evidence. But hey, we do this all the time. I mean, come on. Maybe you're like the person who's like, you really need to see that RRR movie. Man, this movie looks bananas. I know, right? But okay, so you're like pumped. You're like, you say to someone, you should see this movie. And we've talked about moral reasoning. Your friend could say, why? And now you're going to give a reason. Oh, it looks really cool. Oh my God, it looks really cool. Of course, though, your friend might respond with a counter argument being like, well, there is some problematic problems. There are some problems with this about caste and nationalism and stuff. Okay, spoil sport. But either way, you can see we do this all the time. We give each other reasons all the time for believing or doing or whatever. We do this. So lawyers do it, but you guys do it all the time. Okay, so now we can kind of just bring this all together more formally. In particular, statements in an argument are linked together by inferences. Remember, the magic word was because in the previous thing. And so the inferences asserts the truth of one statement on the basis of supporting statements. These supporting statements provide the reasons or evidence. So recall we were asserting the truth of one statement, defendant must go to jail. And the supporting statement was, guilty of the crime of stealing the jewels. And so an argument is where one statement is being defended or justified by one or more other statements. The inferences are what link the statements together, the statement being defended with the statements that provide the evidence or support. So if statements are the bricks, the inferences are the glue that links everything together. And so going back to our example, I just want to note it's very important. This is one sentence. But this is not a single statement. Recall, there are two statements in here. Defendant goes to jail, defendant guilty of stealing the jewel. And these two statements, yes, they're in one sentence, but two statements are linked together by an inference with the magic word because. This is not a hypothetical. I'm not saying if the defendant's guilty, they must go to jail. No, I'm saying there's no hypothetical here. The defendant must go to jail. Here's why. Both statements are being held true. There's nothing being claimed as hypothetical or dependent in this. And so this is just something I want to be clear about. An argument is multiple statements linked together. There have to be at least two statements linked by a because or some kind of inference. So a statement alone, one statement alone is not an argument. And I was just out in the EV a little recently, and I saw this handsome guy. Ooh, that's stylish. Yeah. Tell you what, anything important can be put on a t-shirt. So yeah, a statement is not an argument. Oh man, that's classy. Anyway. And one other thing to kind of flesh this out now, to take these ideas and make them a little more precise, again, the reading helps a lot with this, we can distinguish between premises and main conclusions. A premise is a statement in an argument that is used to support another statement. It is the basis of the inference. The idea is that the premises are the reasons. The premises are the evidence. The premises are the support that get that inference going. Whereas the main conclusion, that's the statement that is being supported. It is the one statement that is ultimately affirmed by all of the argument's inferences. This is where it's all headed towards. All these reasons are being given. Well, reasons for what? Reasons in support of the argument's main conclusion. And that is the idea. So when you're reading an argument, you got to figure out, well, what's this all going towards? What's the main conclusion? Why is this argument being made? The defendant is guilty or something else? Whatever it is, you should see that R movie. This looks really cool. Or is this a reason being given to support or link up or, justify that main conclusion? So that's the key kind of idea here, the premises and then main conclusion. And we have English language gives us lots of words to use. So there's lots of premise indicators. We've seen because already. The idea being whatever follows because is almost certainly going to be some kind of premise. And there's just lots of words we have in English: since, for, as, follows from, in view of the fact, given that, seeing that. You can just go through this list. All of these are very common words that whatever follows that is almost certainly going to be a premise. Now, don't be a robot. Sometimes these words can, these words can work in different ways, but generally, if we're thinking argumentatively, these are all premise indicators here. And of course, there are also common conclusion indicators. Therefore, thus, hence, so, implies that, consequently, and so on. If you want to get fancy, ergo. Someone's going to put this on an exam. They're going to be like, ergo, I'm fancy. I speak Latin, or is that Latin? I don't know. I'm sure it is. But anyway, whatever follows these kinds of words or phrases, these are probably going to be some kind of conclusion. So again, my advice: pick your two favorite premise and conclusion indicators and use them in your writing. And your reader will be very happy if you're making any kind of argumentative thing. Because sometimes you read arguments that don't have these conclusion or premise indicators, and they're tough. So when you're writing, use these liberally. When you're reading, keep an eye out for them. And indeed, sometimes you'll be like, they should be using more indicator words. You're going to be frustrated. It happens. But for you all in your own writing, master these. You're going to be a lawyer or a really persuasive person, maybe. Anyway, so what's an argument? An argument is a collection of statements about which the claim is that the truth of all the premises entail the truth of the conclusion, the main conclusion. What it's all going for, you can say the main conclusion is true because all these premises support it. They give evidence. They justify it. So an argument asserts that the conclusion can be inferred from the premises. That is, the claim is that if the premises are true, then the conclusion must be true as well. And that is the idea behind an argument. And I will not go into these because I think the Hank Green video does a great marvelous job of this. Rewatch the video. I just put this slide here so you can have these kind of concepts just in one place about what does it mean for an argument to be valid. An argument is valid if and only if the truth of the premise guarantees the truth of the conclusion. It provides an assurance that yes, the premises are true, so the conclusion absolutely must be true as well. And then invalid or invalidity. An argument is invalid if and only if it is logically possible for those premises to be true, but a false conclusion. And hankering is some great examples in his video, so you can watch back and see the examples of that. And then finally, soundness. It kind of takes the idea of validity, and it says an argument is sound if the argument is valid, so it has to be valid. And then also all of its premises are actually true. And again, the Hank Green video goes into great detail about that, so I won't go any further here. So that's the idea of an argument. An argument is linked together by inferences, and then we have these here on this slide here, how you can then assess an argument in various ways. All right, well, that's enough. I will take another nice break here. I could use a drink, some tea, and we'll come back, and then we'll start to learn how to parse an argument.